by Helen Acheng, who happens to be the senior cashew nut agronomist or stroke farmer and also a member of the organization. Now, Dixon, how are you?
I'm very fine. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can see, is it the cashew nut oil you've applied? I can
Not really, not really. It's normal life.
Normal life. Things are doing fine.
Easy, yeah.
Now, to begin with, when we talk about cashew nut, there are people like me, you, and many who are aware of what we are talking about.
Yes.
But there are those who could even be hearing it for the first time. Yes, briefly try to paint a picture. I know my producer will look for a picture of a cashew nut, but try to paint a picture to our viewer this morning of what kind of crop we are talking about.
Okay, I thank you very much for the opportunity. And to the viewers who are looking at us, today is actually a cashew day for Uganda, for our own case. It's normally celebrated globally, but on the 23rd of every other year, that was yesterday. In the USA, it is really given a lot of attention. So cashew nut is a tree. It's just like a mango tree. It's just like a mango tree. It has an apple. It has an apple, and it has a nut on the apple. I think your producer can, show the people. Personally, I first learned about to hear about cashew nuts. I didn't even know. I've talked to the people who actually thought that these things are not planted. They tell, oh, these are the cashew nuts. We didn't know that they are planted. So me, I first heard about it. I was in the USA in school. I had a colleague who used to really go in the supermarket. There is a food store called Kroger in the USA, and it sells organic food. Organic food, total organic food. So would go there with money and you really return with nothing. You know, there are people who are particular in what they eat. These are the kind of people who go and they know what they are looking for. So that's how I first heard about cashew nuts. I didn't even know that, the value about it. And then I took it easy. So when I got here moving, of course, researching and seeing how people are eating and what healthy living, I found out that people actually do in cashew nuts. And for the time I've been engaged, I've learned so much in the cashew nuts that, when you get a task, you just have to execute it. So I've learned a lot, and I feel like the best way to do it is to let people actually take advantage of this. In Uganda, we've gotten a lot of attention, like presidential support. We have a presidential directive, but many times I wonder why people have to even be directed. Why do you have to get a directive from a president to actually know that this is a high-value crop? He's a president of a country, he's a chief executive of a country, so, well, he can direct, but I don't see why. If you can do research, you find out there are cash crops, and you find out there is a cash crop which is about 20 times the value of coffee. Now, do you really need to be told to go and plant it? You don't have to be told. So you work on the economies of your scale and see how to really get things working. So cashew nut is an apple. It's actually a tree. It's like a mango tree. It grows. It's a wild tree. It's really big. It can grow up to about 70 to 100 years. That's its lifespan. You plant. When you plant, normally you start harvesting at 4 years, 3-4 years, averagely with about 5 kilograms. And as you know, any tree that grows or any fruit that bears, as it grows, it really, the yield increases. So you reach at a level where you are really harvesting. You can't believe what is going on. Yeah, good enough. People here have taken advantage. Some people are really planting seriously. We have very many farms around. Though we would want to have it at a household level as well. People who have their land at home. You don't need really to go, okay, large scale, fine, but if you're at home, and you can plant a few trees around your home, it also bring you income. Yeah, it can bring you a lot of
Now
income,
let's first look at the presidential directive or promotion of cashew nuts. What have been the yields? What have been some of the challenges? Because we know when His Excellency puts foot on something, has it been a game changer? Have there been challenges for it to see the light of day? How has it led to cashew nut growth in Uganda?
When, like I said, when you also said it, when a president steps foot on something, I really like the way he, you know, gets on things and sees what matters. So the president supported us. We first developed a proposal, which we worked together with the Ministry of Agriculture, and we presented, we have a memorandum of understanding with the ministry through the directorate, the Commissioner of Crop Resources and Production. We signed an MOU, my director signed. When we went into COVID, you know, I used to do other things. I was doing some other World Bank consultancies elsewhere, but I got a job, and I saw, you know, in COVID, it was a time to reflect. What can you do? Anyway, you're not traveling anymore, but what can you do? So that job was on the table. So I really jumped on through COVID, and things have worked. In 2017, that's when the president actually, I think after doing his research about cashew nuts, what it can do, he added on the proposal that we had developed and put it out there. So we have a 2017 presidential directive effected then. It targets about 650,000 tons in a period of 5 years. You know, like anything which is new, things really tend to really waggle here and there, but things work. We've seen things working out, though we have challenges between the private sector and the farmers, the institutions, the departments of government. But I think it's about understanding what needs to be done. People have planted, I'm sure that over the seedlings which were planted, really, you know, having tree stands surviving, it's been a challenge because it's not given so much attention, and that's why we come in. That's what we've been doing. We have farmers who have operators who have a lot of cashew nuts seedlings. Apparently, they got the seed as expected. Some we are trying to find out. But then, you know, when they were engaged, you know, people are Ugandans are very hardworking people. Sometimes people say they are lazy, but I really don't understand when they say people are lazy. Because if you find someone with a cashew nut operating business, he has a nursery with about 200,000 seedlings on his own, he doesn't know whether government is going to take care, but they are doing it, and they are all out there. So you can see that they are thinking way ahead of what probably even the government is doing. You can see that they are really thinking, but apparently they have seedlings on their seed beds. They are overgrowing, and technically, when a cashew seedling goes beyond 5 months, I think we wait for Helen Okilan. I have a technical personnel called Okilan. He's been in the cashew nut industry for the last, I think, 40, 50 years. Ever since the crop was introduced. His father was part of the team that actually worked it out in Uganda. So after he gave it to the son, who is Okilan, and he's been passionate. We work together. He supports all the orchards in this country. He's a very good, dependable guy. There's also Helen Acham, as you said, she's coming. She's a very good farmer in northern Uganda. And they have their outgrowing business and all that. People really see the value, especially when you tell them. So we really have achieved, depending on the presidential directive, which targets those 650,000 tons in a period of 5 years, though what we planted in the first season, second season, they were really not supported as we would want. So we want to make sure that things can work, because if you see the value of cashew nut, I mean, why would you just abandon a crop which can be a cash crop to really survive all these economies that we've gone through COVID, you know, recovery and all these things. So for me, I feel like since the presidential directive, we have achieved, and people are looking forward to planting cashew nuts. There are people you explain to, you show them the value in planting this tree versus this other, and they see. You wonder why you would really heavily get into eucalyptus, you know. So people are really thinking. Yeah.
Now, one question that comes to my mind, well, this is a crop.
Yeah.
Are we growing for export, going back to the other good old days where we had cash crops and either cash crops? For you, the farmer, you can only plant, then wait for someone to buy from you. Do we have market of cashew nuts here in Uganda? Or is it the traditional way you grow the tobacco, a factory must come and take that tobacco from you. With cashew nuts, if I'm to go into this, you've just mentioned of people having them in the orchards, you know. So that is the element of market that I want you to answer to our viewers. But also, do we have domestic consumption, or it is basically we grow this tonnage, then export to the US, which is not bad at all, because we need foreign exchange.
Yes.
We need to improve on what we export and reduce on what we import. But for the farmer and the market back home.
Now, I've just been telling you about, you know, me, I really believe in the thoughts, thoughts which are productive thoughts. When people tell you, and they don't even have to tell you, there is research everywhere, evidence everywhere. For now, we are trying, for example, Uganda, we are trying to respond to the recent domestic and international shocks which happened. When you see, sometimes you need like a think tank, people who think clearly to really guide what happens, how do we get out of this mess. So internationally, people are thinking. Now here we are, we went into COVID and we're thinking about this recovery. Now we are telling you, these are crops, something you can do, because you see, to recover, we had about 3 years wasted in COVID. Now we're telling you, this tree can last about 3-4 years because you see, if you invest in it, then you are thinking about recovery. You are planting, yes, there are stresses, you can be stressed by whatever, but in the 4-5 years, you're thinking about recovery, together with the world. Now, in the whole world, when you see the demand of cashew nut in the whole world, there is a lot actually that is expected from producing countries, but it's literally not there. The cashew nuts are actually not there. We have about the world demand of about 12 million metric tons. That's what the whole world demands of cashew nuts. But when you see these producing countries like Benin, Togo, West Africa, Vietnam, India, everywhere, Mozambique, Tanzania here, which is doing very well, they only managed to produce just about 4 million metric tons for the whole world to consume. So you could see you have about 8 million metric tons in demand. And now, that's international. When you go here, do you know about cashew nuts, by the way, personally? Have you seen it? Have you eaten them?
Oh, I've seen them, I've eaten them.
You've eaten them, okay. So
when
locally,
you go to high-end hotels.
Locally, when you go
but
in,
also not common, to be honest.
Exactly, they are not common. They are not common.
If you've not gone to these high-end hotels where they give you a small cup of tea, then among what they bring, they are there. You can, you know.
Yes. In fact, even there is it out of Africa? I used to find them on planes out of Africa. It's a product. I think it's a Kenyan brand or something. They really sell such things. They value, and you find them on planes mainly. But locally, if you went in any supermarket, I will not talk about the people who are doing it, because it might look like a commercial for them. But if you go in supermarkets, you will find them. It's just like a handful. You'll find it's about 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. And when you calculate, in that, it's about 50 grams. Now, when you calculate in a kilogram, how many 50 grams are in a kilogram, you find a kilogram is actually going for like 100,000 shillings. Because they sell you something like this small, and it's 20,000. Now, think about it. Imagine what is in a kilogram. If someone is producing, adding that value, and is making things just like that to reach a kilogram. Because if you buy it 20, you have 50 grams. How many 50 grams are in a kilogram? Just calculating it, and you see how people are making money. They will never tell you, but for my own research and my own findings, if you have 100 kilograms of processed cashew nut, you have about 10 millions in your pocket.
Very interesting. But also, let's look at the eating culture. Are people just not aware of the benefits? Because it seems the eating culture hasn't yet picked up that much here.
Yeah, as you know, eating is not everybody's tech. You have to know what to eat and when to eat it. Like I told you, I got shocked when I went to, Kroger in the US. It's a food store. Really, when you go in there, it's actually the food that they sell. It's organic food. And you see how much they sell, like cashew nuts. People need to see, because we tell according to what we've seen. And then you can use the market data to actually determine what you should be expecting. So Locally, there is an enormous market. In fact, the cashew nuts which have been in the country for the last 10 years, they were imported from Tanzania. You know, Tanzania is a very interesting country. They have this sort of ujamaa, you know, ujamaa something. So it's, even their land tenure system. Their land tenure system allows government to come and do a lot of work. But in Uganda here, people own their land. So you know, when you get in, you try to convince them to see what adds value into their homesteads. But I think the land tenure system, personally, in Uganda, it favors private sector, like a private approach to business, farming as a business. Because if you have your land, as the president normally says, around the 4-acre model and whatever, you know, I don't know how much they should tell us. I don't know how much, for example, a president should get on and talk and tell people, and then people don't adopt. They don't even see what is supposed to be done. Otherwise, I think here, the land tenure system, because if you have your 4 acres, or your 1 acre, even your homestead, if you plant 20 trees around your home, you are now making money. You're making money and also valuing a crop. You see a tree and you know that the resources we have, what we eat, you're what we eat. What we eat is what we are. And everything is around us. So how else can we survive? Cashew nut has a lot of products, by the way. A lot. You are thinking about food. The other day I was with Mr. Sushi. He runs the... He's an Indian investor. He came here, just got land about a square mile somewhere there in Nakasongola, and he planted cashew nuts. Cashew nuts, they're about 7 years now. And he's harvesting, and he's exporting the whole of it. So we were talking, and he tells me how they make tan, dye, you know, in India. He has, people are already into industry. He tells me why he came here to plant it. And people, I mean, I wish he was here. The mother is sick, so he traveled to India. But when he tells you what cashews are doing in India, the whole mass around the cashew nut, because you see, like I told you, it's an apple. There's an apple gives you juice, it gives you, and it's organic. You can make wine, you know, all these, you know, extract and make the wine. Then the nut itself, they make cashew nut milk. Yes, cashew nut milk. They're in supermarkets here. Yes, they're in supermarkets here. If you go around and you know what you want to eat, as you asked, we are what we eat. It has the value of whatever it is, and the best thing you can do is to value it and really make business out of it. Why would you be involved here when they are telling you that's where the market is? Locally, just walk. I normally tell people, walk somewhere in a supermarket and say, I want to cashew nuts. And you see how they cost. And people buy them. Some people eat them. Some people see their bosses eat them. And they're like, what is he eating? I talk to people and they're like, those big ground nuts. I'm like, yes, they are big ground nuts. So me, that's all I can tell people, but we have to really be productive around it and work together. Get things working together. Because, I mean, what can we do? What can you do?
Well, cashew nuts, something that many people are wondering, what are we referring to? Well, we explained that earlier, but also I'll be getting a small clip regarding the cashew nut that my brother here, Dixon, says it is something that can really transform the lives of people. Later on, I'll be joined by Helen Achan, who happens to be a senior cashew nut agronomist. He will be joining me on set, and we'll be discussing more regarding that. But now, you also have, is it an association?
Yes.
Now, let's also first go into that, because we know coming together is power, coming together is strength.
Yes, please.
What exactly does this do? This association we are talking about, that you call a chain link of events that someone has to go through properly if they are to benefit from this kind of business or agricultural business.
Okay, we have a national association. You know, when you're doing business, this can be a secret, but we can really open. When you're doing business, you know, you find a reason. It could be social, you know, whatever reason, but you must find a reason and you stick to it. So, but to do that effectively, you need to associate people. People need to be, actually, like there used to be cooperatives, for example. Now, a company trades. If you have a company, you can trade normally, pay taxes and, you know, be loyal to government and do whatever that is. But now an association mobilizes people. Because of course you are not going to go and speak to people and then yes, you will reach out to them, but we have an association. It's a Cashew Farmers and Promoters National Association of Uganda. Recently, just the other day, we had an extraordinary assembly at Operation Wealth Creation here in on Okira Road. And membership, people were coming together. Even before we had that meeting, people were on top of our, you know, demanding to know. People bring issues and you're like, okay, now I'm here. I am leading them. So if people come to me and they want you to attend to their needs, how will you do it? So as an association, we got people together, especially interested people who know what it's all about. And we have a good membership. There are operators, there are companies, there are all these people around the value chain, stakeholders. People, we are there. We are really doing a great job. So as an association, we mobilize people. We get them together. And then the other things happen to really favor the organization, the associated effort. So together you associate, like, you know, cooperatives. And then in other things, if you have to do business, you come, because this is what it is. For us to really attend to their need, if people came, they say, you man, the other day we were engaged by government, you know, in Maif, and they gave us contracts. We were supposed to sign. Actually, they signed. And then we have seedlings, and they're overgrowing. This is a lot of money. I know how it is. I have tried to import cashew nuts all the time from Tanzania. It's not cheap. It's not cheap at all to actually, because in Tanzania, like I told you, for them they discovered this thing long time ago. And you know, Tanzania has been peaceful over the times. So they have a lot of cashew nuts out there. In fact, in Africa, it's leading currently. And they will not really expose their trade. You can go and have
it's their niche.
It's their niche. It's like how you say maybe in Brazil there's coffee, you know. So Tanzania, especially with those guys, the Jakaya Chikwetes, the Magufulis, they really know what to deal with and they take care of it. For example, they have a national cashew board. Like you see a coffee development authority here. And everything, even to sell the nuts on the road, you have to be licensed. Yes,
contrary to what is here, if you have what to sell, you just go anywhere and you sell.
You just go on the street. But in Tanzania, they follow you up because it's their thing. They have been exporting and they have been making a lot of money. So for us here, we just have to see how do we get around these things. How do we get around these things? We have a lot of, for example, cashew nut is a drought-resistant tree.
That's why actually I found many of these in northern Uganda.
Exactly.
Not in central. As I was driving through areas that were former camps and all that, I could see these trees, and some of them didn't seem to be planted there intentionally. I don't know how it happened.
Yeah, about like 60 years ago, FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, actually introduced these crops in Uganda. I think it was meant to cater for, you know, as you know, they did cotton, coffee, just to cater for the cash economies abroad. So people didn't take it seriously. The cashew nuts were introduced then by FAO.
Some look like abandoned as you're moving
by. I have been engaged with Dr. Antonio of FAO, and we've been, you know, going through those engagements. So the trees were kind of abandoned over time. And now, for us, because, you know, since then, you know, independence, there are these economic wars, political wars, and whatever, Idi Amin, and things like that. They didn't really give it attention. It was there, but scanty. You could see a few trees there. And now, even those trees which are there are actually old. And now, since then, people have been developing better varieties. We have now better varieties, hybrids. So what happened then, those are the trees you see. You can imagine about 60 years, those trees are still there, though they are not productive, but they are better varieties now. When you go into our farms, you will find out they are better varieties which will have big nuts, really big nuts. The other ones are small. Remember, you have to extract, get the seed out of it, get the nut, and now, of course, the other one is biomass. So when you are counting what sells, it's not the small nut, it's a bigger nut. That's the value. So Uganda, we've been into that conflict. Of course, when these governments have been changing, I will not take sides because that doesn't matter. Now we are in an economy where you can think. Me, I have to tell you, I appreciate what I see. Yeah, people might say, you know, we are here because things are not work. But you know, when you're given a chance to do what you have to do, and you do it better now, and the trees are there is peace, you can go and plant whatever you want. There are things, of course, challenges here and there, but you have an opportunity to actually do something now. In Uganda now, it's okay. Yes. Because people can plant as much as possible, the varieties are there. It's a cash economy. We are in a drought area where now the environmental, as you know, we have a threat. And the cashew nuts, because they're environmentally friendly, they can survive, as you said, where you hardly can see a tree surviving. In other words, they are actually conserving the environment. Okay. As you know, the trees feed on carbon dioxide scientifically, and then they give you oxygen. So that's what it is. I hear people in those COP conferences, you know, sometimes you wonder.
Why don't they promote such?
I have seen, there's a time I went, you know, with research, I went on the website, that COP whatever. I saw about 2,000 acts, about 5,000 sijui what, you know. And I said, but all these things, really, I don't see an activity that's actually taken place. So I said, now what are they conserving? Or what are they meeting about?
Very interesting observation there, but allow me to go for a short break. When I return, I will not only have Dixon on set, but I also have Helen Achan Langat, who happens to be a senior cashew nut agronomist, who will be joining us on set. We'll return shortly.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
The Ministry of Health informs the public that there are confirmed cases of Ebola in Uganda. We, however, urge the public not to panic as the situation is being managed. The Ministry of Health further reminds the public to be on the lookout for any persons who may show signs and symptoms of Ebola. These include high body temperature, abdominal pains, diarrhea, vomiting, bleeding from the body openings such as the nose, eyes, and mouth. Please inform the nearest health worker immediately if you see anyone with these signs and symptoms. To prevent Ebola from spreading further, please take the following preventive measures: regular washing of hands with water and soap, avoid handshaking and hugging, avoiding any contact with any suspected Ebola patients. Any person who dies suddenly should not be buried but reported to the nearest health worker or LC1 immediately. For further information, please call the Ministry of Health toll-free number on 0800 100-066 or send a free SMS to your report on 8500. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from UNICEF and World Health Organization.
It's our mission to secure your money.
Protecting your money is as important as earning it. It is for this reason that the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda, DPF, was established by the government of Uganda to provide deposit protection to customers of regulated financial institutions. In the unlikely event that your commercial bank, credit institution, or microfinance deposit-taking institution fails, the DPF will pay you up to 10 million Uganda shillings. Keep your personal information such as national identification number, mobile phone, or an alternative bank account updated with your banker. Terms and conditions apply. For more information, contact DPF at Aha Towers, Plot 7 Lodell Road, Kampala. Call 0312-206-400 or visit our website at www.dpf.or.ug.
We are the DPF. We protect your money. Protection Fund of Uganda.
This weekend on UBC.
There is what you call love, and there is what love is. When you love somebody, it costs you. When you lust after somebody, it costs the other person. When I say I love you, I'm saying I'm seeking for what is good for you at my expense.
Lord, I lay down my life.
I lay down my life. In other words, I pay the bill. Whatever it costs to love you, I pay the bill.
Now, a certain gentleman is standing up to leave.
It's okay. That's what I mean. When there is no love, you easily throw tantrums because you're used to control. You're used to manipulation. And this is where the man is. This is where parenting fails because love is not. And even the woman doesn't understand love.
This weekend on UBC. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from that short break. Thank you for being with us here on UBC TV. It is Good Morning Uganda Extra, and today we are discussing something very interesting, that is a crop where many people can earn a fortune, and that is the cashew nut. Now today, Uganda, we are celebrating the World Cashew Nut Day. This is a crop that is more so used, its products are so much used in the United States. About 80% of outcomes or what we can get from cashew nuts is used in the United States. But also here, slowly by slowly, we are getting to be very sensitive of what we eat, what we drink, and of course, there are so many benefits of consuming cashew nuts. Now, joining me on set, like I earlier told you, I have Ellen Acham, who happens to be a senior, that is a cashew nut agronomist, but also one of the farmers, I would say model farmers in this business. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Ellen, to begin with, you're a farmer of
Yes.
cashew nut, but how is it easy for someone to start this business? The number of crops, but when they tell you the do's, the don'ts, the requirements, you just say it's not a business to venture in.
Yeah, thank you so much. What I would like to say first, let me introduce myself. I am Helen Keti Acham Elungat. I'm the Executive Director, Northeast Chili Producers Association, and a member of the National Association of Cashew Nut Promoters, Farmers and Promoters. I'm a cashew nut farmer. Northeast Chili Producers Association was the first organization in Uganda, besides government, to conduct research on cashew nuts. And the research we did was on farm research with the farmers. The research was funded by the Netherlands Worldwide Organization in 2014, but I started cashew nuts growing in 2013. As a person who found the benefits after reading through. And whenever I was traveling, I would eat cashew nuts on the plane. I would go to the supermarkets. The cashew nuts are very expensive. While the cashew nuts were grown in Uganda, they were there in the bush. There was no streamlined marketing. And some time back, as he said, FAO introduced cashew nuts, but we also introduced cashew nuts and other crops. The government established farms. We have one in Lango, Aloyongom. We had one in Soroti, in Odina Citrus Farm. And we had one in Busoga, that was in Kamuli, and then one in West Nile. So all these farms have been there with a lot of trees not being productive. They are managed by government, by Ministry of Agriculture. But the big challenge that we have found is that the cashew nuts were abandoned because, first of all, there were no proper agronomic trainings given to farmers. So after that also, a research was done jointly by East Africa, and it was conducted by Nafori, and then we had Mutwara, the Research Center for Cashew Nuts in Tanzania, and then also there was Kenya. So that research also planted a lot of cashew nuts, but still there has been lag of commitment by farmers and also by the ministry or government to streamline to come up with policies that would support the cashew nut. So as a farmer, during the research time, we did research in Teso, Karamoja, Lango, West Nile, and some dotted parts in Uganda. We had an Indian who came up, one in Nakasongola and then one in Luero. So when they came, they started buying the cashew nut. They started buying the cashew nut, and the cashew nut was being bought. And we came and they accepted to be our model farmers in those areas to see the performance of the cashew nuts. So we planted 100 acres of cashew nuts in Semutu sub-county in Luero district for grow more seeds. And then also we planted 80 acres of cashew nuts in Nakasongola, where we had, the farm he said he visited and they're already processing. Most of that cashew nuts was planted in between 2014 and 2015. So they planted, and 2016, most of them increased their acreage. So as NECPA, we were working, as me, I was working with about 4,000 farmers who were doing, some of them were demo farmers, some of them were trial farmers. And we planted about 106,000 seedlings across the board. On my own, I've planted 7 acres. We have some in Lira, some in Katakwi, and I've also done some in Abim, just to try to see how the crop will perform in those areas. So the cashew nut is a crop that is a high value. Actually, cost of cashew nuts is 20 times a cost of a kilo of coffee. I'm also a coffee farmer. I grow coffee, and I also grow chili, African bird eye chili. So it is cashew nut, you can easily intercrop it. And sometimes I use like the chili to produce the organic pesticide that we use. Our cashew nuts is purely organic that we are producing, and we're encouraging the farmers to produce organic. There are a lot of synergies that happen in cashew nut production. First of all, there is nothing that goes to waste. It is a very good drought-resistant crop. We were doing trials, and we saw in Katakwi that the place where we planted the cashew nuts and where we had the citrus, during the harsh weather, all the citrus withered. But the cashew nut remained green. And this variety we are using is polycolonial, which is a very high yielding variety. Takes only 2.5 years to mature. You start harvesting. In the 3rd year, you start harvesting. And you can get minimum of 5 kilos per tree in the 1st year. 5 kilos per tree? Yes, in the first year. Okay. And that is like after 2.5 years, as you're entering the 3rd year. And then the yields increase, because there are about 4 varieties, which have been actually 5, which were recommended during the research. First of all, which was done by Nafori. I thank them because they established a demonstration site in Soroti, in Soroti, near, actually within the city now. It is within the city now, Soroti city, on Serere Road, on Omodoi. So government, now currently, during the research, it was handed over to the local government. So we were able to go and also continue learning during the time of our research, learning on those ones, and also learning on the old trees which were planted some time back. First of all, we wanted to compare the yields. Like in Aloyangwam, we have 11,866 productive trees. So during the research, we have been doing the pruning in bits. But the challenge is, since it is under government management, if it was a private sector managing it, would be making a lot of billions from the cashew nuts. But just because we are using we are using government, and now we have the people who are currently using the gardens. They are planting crops because you can intercrop it. Some people say you cannot intercrop. People are growing maize, people are growing cassava, people are growing beans under the cashew nut trees, and they are benefiting. So we realize that the yields that are expected is not coming, and then the children destroy it because of this, the benefits that children get from the fruits. The apples are very, very nutritious and very nice. So the children always remove it before it is even mature. And also the nut itself, they take and roast. They don't even allow it to dry. They take it and roast. So we have not been able to really account how much cashew nuts we have that we can harvest. And also along the roads, they planted those cashew nuts, especially in Teso.
I see them along.
And also schools in Teso, they have planted a lot of cashew nuts. But I want to encourage Ugandans that we are blessed that at least the president, our president, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, already gave a directive for planting and the government accepting to plant the cashew nuts.
Now, Helen, this takes me briefly to, that is Dixon. All along we've talked about, it's a campaign of let's plant, let's have more. Definitely that is fairly good because you need to have more production for you to go into export. But the question of market remains a problem because in this motherland, I've been in farming for some good time and I'm very passionate about agriculture. We've had many people who come with a product for our farmers. She's been around, she can tell you. We had a campaign of moringa, I think a farmer will tell you. We had a campaign of, is it Rovera? We had a campaign one time, people were into these so caterpillars and all that. So there have been many things and people make huge investments. But then at the end of the day, they don't have where to sell. Rightly, we can all agree that the eating or domestic consumption of cashew nuts in Uganda is still low. So much as we are calling people, this is a blessing, there is value, there is market, there is that and that, how if people embrace this wholeheartedly, what next?
Maybe I would first answer. Since the research, I've gotten so many calls internationally demanding for cashew nuts.
Okay.
So I think we have not yet, we can't even meet a quarter of the demand. As I said that the president came in and gave a blessing for cashew nuts after several engagements with the association. He said, okay, yes, we can now promote the cashew nut growing. And as you said that people do a lot of huge investments, I think the only mistake that some people have made was that it was not a passion from the beginning until when they heard that government was starting to buy the seedlings. That's when we got many people coming on board to start raising seedlings, looking at the market, which was after hearing that the president have given a blessing for the cashew nuts to be distributed to the farmers. So I think first of all we need to appreciate the
and now
crop.
Many will tell you we have cashew nuts in our orchards, but people taking them, we are not seeing buyers.
Yeah, that is the challenge because many people came in after getting that directive, but some of us who started early before the directives were given by the president, we continued and we are still continuing. The other way is that some of us have been giving the seedlings to the farmers who are willing on credit. And like the way when I was doing the research, we had a subsidized seedling cost for the farmers because part of the funding was, the money was subsidized by the project that was funding research. So what we've been doing is that we give farmers the seedlings and then we get the nuts back as we are buying the raw nuts. And then we get those raw nuts because what we gave out for the first during the research was a foundation seed which we got from Mutwara. And that seed is still very good to use for making our own seeds here in Uganda for our farmers to benefit. So the issue of the market is not a big problem. Right now, even locally, we have a very huge demand for cashew nuts. Farmers are asking, the buyers are asking, but we still don't meet that target of the demand. Because most of the nuts that we started, that they started producing, the one we planted in 2014, by 2016, end of 2016, we were already harvesting, and beginning of 2017, we already been harvesting. And that one always we have been harvesting since it was the one from those good trees which we use the foundation seeds. We have been getting it and using it back as seed to propagate more. And very little has been sold out to the buyers. As we increase the production, we are also looking as an association to start looking at the way of getting processing plants. We have some commercial farmers, like in Amuria. We have one who has planted almost 1 square mile of cashew nuts. He has even ordered for the processing machines, which are coming soon. And he harvests his, for him, he doesn't sell any of his nuts. He's keeping it now, he's waiting for the machine to start processing. We have one processor who's been processing using the local methods of processing. He was supposed to be here with us, Mr. Joseph Okilan. He's still processing. Although he's not using automated, using manual crackers, and then everything he does it manual. The steaming manual. So he's still processing, but what he's able to process is very limited. And now we have the 2 Indians who are already processing. This one who planted 100, he has now about 200 acres of cashew nuts here in Ruero. That is Gromo seeds. Those ones are also processing theirs now. The one in Nakasongola has a machine already, they are processing. And we also have one in Noya, who is also almost starting to process. But we want to promote our Ugandan indigenous investors. And that's why association comes into play a very big role.
Okay.
So that as we start to look for resources to invest in the processing machinery, we first want to ensure that we have improved on production and increased the production. That when we invest in the machinery, we don't invest and then it comes like the soroti, the teso, processed fruit thing. Sometimes it's there idle, there is nothing to process. So you find that they think the machinery are there, but as association we want first to make sure that we mobilize, galvanize the production. We have the high good production with better agronomic practices. We train all the people. First of all, we are targeting also to train the extension staff of the local government. To
better understand this.
To better understand the cashew nut, what it takes to produce a cashew nut. And also we want to do more research on propagations. Can we start also doing grafting? And if we are doing grafting, can we use our old root stocks, the old nuts of our old variety, because it is much, and it can produce the root stocks, and then can we start doing the grafting?
That would be a better quality. The other. Well, I see time is not so much on our side, but I'll get back to Dixon. There's something you wanted to interject regarding marketing, then I also have your final remark.
Okay, thank you once again. Thank you, Helen, for coming through. I really expected even Joseph Okilan to be here, but I think he got some hiccup somewhere. So, in that presidential directive, much as we, he says this is research, like informed research. Plant 2 million trees at least a year. So if we said 10 years, those would be 10 million trees. So we say 10 million trees a year. That's the target. But now you can imagine, now we are saying we need productivity so that we can meet the whole demand. Just like we've told you. I understand what you talk about, moringa, whatever that is, all that. When you discover your passion, something to do and you are informed, you actually don't have to rely on noisemakers. If you really know that Moringa can do this, you don't need to really jump in. You just have to go in like yourself and you passionately chase what you have to chase. But as we are speaking now, we say this is a cashew day, for example. Right now, we are seated with the people who have about 800,000 seedlings on his own. Yes, we may not know, but if someone says, this is what we have to plant, let's agree, we can maybe put out 3 million trees per year. And then you have these seedlings which are actually very expensive, by the way. These people are engaged, where some are fake, of course we have to manage and control them. But now these are seedlings which are actually abandoned. And we are comparing to all this. So you can just think about it. Now in the directive, of course, again, the whole value chain, as you know, jobs are created. Jobs are created, you know that. So if this is really reaching out to youth, women who are at home, you see how she's saying that the trees were there, but you know, trees in the wild. People don't know. They don't know that this is a cashew nut. Something like this can come out of it. So you wonder what we actually have to be expecting as a people. So the market is really there. I actually have a request. Because when I see what we are going through, because what we're concerned with now is productivity. Are we being productive? Are we meeting the tonnages? Because in Uganda there is a hype. Something comes and people go in, then after they leave. But where would you live? If, for example, me, I would want to actually do what I can and I leave this job. But I already see things to do. In COVID, when COVID started, I got a chance. I left all these other things I was doing, other things. So we concentrated. I remember the late Professor Mutebire engaged me to manage one of his production units. And then I learned a lot, like how things happen. At least he would, you know, cater, you know. So I saw a lot of things, how things can actually happen quickly. In a short time, we transformed whatever we're producing, and you'd see the things around town in supermarkets. I would be there myself. We are reaching about 50 million shillings per month in corrections. You know? Because you see, you have to get in there. So if you have your cashew nuts and people are telling you, at least they are telling you we are here, reaching out to you, then why would you take it as if it's a snag? Me, I would want to tell the farmers. For example, there's a directive, it's going out to just all people. There are people in these, you know, we have a lot of land in Uganda, very productive. Now these farmers who are cattle herders, they use a lot of land, from here up to Amuru. Me, I would want actually to agree with the president to have at least these farmers, these guys planting trees in those, even in those farms. We can do a plan, because you see, if these guys have trees.
Well, Dixon, time is not so much on our side. We're in the times of the World Cup, and UBC is the official broadcaster of that. So we want to maintain every segment in so much your time. Let me just give Helen just a minute to wind up.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank UBC for giving us opportunity to be here on this day, International Cash Day. I'm very grateful. I would like to say that as I wind up, I want to tell all the farmers that don't lose hope. All the nursery operators, also want to ask, to request my youth that let them honor what they did, because they already called the farmers, they signed the contracts, and up to now they have not yet given them the contracts and the call of orders. So please, I am calling upon the PS to work on that. And I would want to call all the farmers that cashew, there's nothing that we lose. If I had time, I would have told you all the uses of the cashew nuts. But because of the time, maybe next time, we will get time and then we'll come and tell you about the benefits of having cashew nuts. For all the people who are diabetic, please eat cashew nuts. It is one of the major things that will help you regenerate your body. And it's also very nutritious. I want to wish all the Ugandans and the coffee farmers, the cashew nut promoters, the nursery operators, a very marvelous celebration as we celebrate the International Cashew Nut Day.
Thank you so
Thank you for
much.
God and my country.
Well, time is not so much on my side, but I want to thank you, Dixon. Thank you, Helen, for time. And of course, that word of encouragement to the farmers, those in the nursery bed. Well, this is gold that we have. If everybody played their role, it is much more of value and can really see people out of poverty. Have a lovely day. See you tomorrow, God willing.